Hello, this is Mary Prasad. You can visit me at awashwithcolor.com. In this video, I'm going to be doing a review of Chameleon Color Tones pencils and coloring the stamp Let the Journey Begin by Dreamerland Crafts. Here's a quick look at the stamp I colored and the card I made with it. This is the packaging for the Chameleon Color Tones colored pencils. It comes in this really beautiful colored sleeve, and the black box is inside containing the pencils. You just have to push it out the side. Although the packaging looks pretty impressive, it isn't actually as functional as you might think. There are some magnets here on the front cover that you can kind of see, which will make it into a workstation of sorts. When you open the box, you'll notice two more magnets on the cover. This is what holds it closed. The pencils come with a small leaflet, which we'll talk about in a second. Right now, I'm just going to open up the case by folding back the cover and securing it with the magnets that I showed you earlier. The box may be a little stiff when you first get it, so the magnets may not stick quite well, but it also helps if you don't put them on top of something else. When they're standing up like this, I find it difficult to actually pull them out without stabbing myself, so I didn't like this format. I had the same issue when I put them back in. Then I tried them laying down, but I also had some troubles with them in this format. Whenever I put them in, see how they snap in? If you have them too low, they will hit the plastic and break off the tip. If you have them too high, then they'll be sticking up. So that didn't really work well for me. The company included a color chart at the bottom of the pencils. The problem is their quality control wasn't very good, and this was not glued against the side very well, covering up about a third or more of the chart. But that isn't really a problem for me because I tend to swatch everything out anyway. The printed charts are never as accurate as the actual pencil colors. Instead of keeping them in their container, I would highly recommend switching them to another pencil case, such as this one by Global Art. These are the ones that I keep a lot of my pencils in. They're very nice. They have a snap on the end and they unzip. They hold very securely, are great for travel, and they're very easy to get the pencils in and out. They're a little tight when you first buy them, but other than that, they work great. This case can hold up to 48 pencils. Now these are also made out of canvas, and you can get some different colors as well. I got the leather there, and this one is a canvas one. It also holds 48. This next one only holds 24. It's a single, very compact, great for travel. And this is the very large one. I keep my Prismacolors in two of these because they hold 120 each. And I have a couple sets of Prismacolors since I had bought some smaller sets when I was younger and then bought a full set later on. So I had a lot of pencils. The cases also come in sizes that hold 72 or 96 pencils, and you can find them at Amazon, Dick Blick, Jerry's Artorama, and other stores on the net. This is a leaflet that comes with the Chameleon Color Tones. I was rather disappointed in this. There's not very much information in here. They should have included more information about the pencils, like whether they are wax-based or oil-based. I contacted the company and found out that they are wax-based. And also light fast ratings would have been very helpful. They had a little bit of information on the back of the brochure about the company which manufactures them in Austria. I did several tests comparing the Chameleon pencils to different types of pencils on the market. Two of them are considered professional art pencils. So I compared them to Faber-Castell, Prismacolor, and Jane Davenport Magic Wand pencils. I chose the three primary colors to do all the testing and blending, and I used the lighter side of the Chameleons for this. From the other three manufacturers, I tried to pick the color that was closest. It wouldn't necessarily be the best looking or the most pigmented, but it was the closest in that manufacturer's range to the colors I picked in the Chameleon. The first test I'm going to show you is how well the color showed up on black cardstock. You will notice that the Faber-Castell and the Prisma are much brighter. The Jane Davenport and the Chameleon didn't show up very well. I wouldn't use them on black cardstock. One thing you'll want to note is the Faber-Castell are the oil-based pencils in this bunch. The rest are wax-based. At the time that I did this, I did not know that the Jane Davenport and Chameleon were wax-based. I contacted the companies and they confirmed that they are wax-based pencils. The next test I did was on some tone paper. For this I used Nina Desert Storm. Now you can see a little better here in the close-up of how well they actually blended. The Faber-Castell and the Prismacolor are much smoother in the blending. These next tests were done on smooth white cardstock. For most of them I used a solvent, and these are all the ones that are the larger splotches. The smaller ones were just done by blending without any solvent at all. With the solvent I used some blending stumps. These are Creative Mark and I bought these at Jerry's Autorama. I typically buy the smallest and next smallest sizes, that's size 1 and size 2. And I mark each end as to the color that I'm going to be using. So this would be the yellow-green, the orange, and the violet. That way I can use them many times over. They don't get too mixed up with other colors and it works out well for me. As for the solvent, I use Winsor & Newton Sans Odor. Whenever using solvents, even if they don't have an odor, be sure to use them in a well-ventilated room. I pour some in a small jar like this, and I just use it as I need. So I unscrew the lid, I dip the blender in, and then usually I put the lid just loosely on and then screw it all the way down when I'm done. Normally I blend by just rubbing lightly across the area I want to blend with the solvent. But the Chameleon pens tended to basically melt away a little too much, so I had trouble blending. You can see it better on the black paper where it virtually disappears. Now I'm going to do some blending on the tone card stock, which I haven't used the solvent on yet. As you can see, the Chameleons melt away just like it did on the black paper and on the white paper. Even when I do it with a different color, it still melts away. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of using my orange tip blender instead of the violet one, and so I'm going to just clean it off here. This is what I typically do if I make that mistake. You just take a sheet of scrap paper and scribble on it. Now if you find that this doesn't remove enough, you can also use sandpaper. I've mounted a piece of sandpaper to an old stamp block. Another option is to just cut the tip with some scissors. This will also help you get a point and take off any extraneous bits that might be on there. To continue blending, I'm going to do the Jane Davenports next. As you can see, they do blend somewhat. They weren't the best, but they perform better than the Chameleon. The Prismacolors actually perform the best, and I do like this technique a lot with the Prismacolors. I'm guessing this is because they're so soft and you get a lot of pigment when you color with hardly any effort. I even did some blending on the black, and it also performed really well. I forgot to show the Faber-Castells, but this is not my favorite technique with these pencils either. Here's a close-up look of all the tests I did. On some of them I tried it twice, but the results weren't any different really. The best were the Prismacolors, followed by the Jane Davenport and Faber-Castell Polychromos. One thing to note is that all the areas with the asterisks were done without any solvent, and basically I got the opposite results. The Faber-Castell and Chameleons blended really smoothly, followed by the Jane Davenport, and then finally the Prismacolors. The Prismacolors left the biggest gaps. In other words, the white of the paper showed through much more often when I used the Prismacolors. Now I'm going to do some quick blending with the blues and the yellows. I noticed that the yellow on the Chameleons was not as intense, so I went back over it. Next, I tested all the yellow pencils to see how well the color would go on in one stroke. The Chameleons were the lightest of the bunch. This is probably due to a combination of the pencils having a harder lead, plus not as much pigment as the other pencils. Since Chameleon color tone pencils are made to be blended with the colors on the opposite sides of each of the pencils, I decided to do a little demo here for you. Normally I would color in circles and this would take a lot longer, but I wanted to do something kind of quick just to give you an idea of how they blended. My personal opinion is that they do blend pretty well, but you have to use some force to get them to blend. My hands started to hurt even doing this quick demo. I had to shake it out. Finally, I just did a blending with the rest of the pencils in red and yellow. You might notice a few crumbs on the Prismacolors. They are a little crumbly sometimes, especially if you use a little bit more force. I also found this to be true of the Chameleons, but in a smaller scale. This became a little bit of a problem when you were trying to blend, as these pieces would get caught under the lead and then it would make like a little dark spot. I finally decided to store my pencils in this version of a Global Art pencil holder. This one rolls up and it has some protective plastic on either side for the pencil tips, which is very convenient since this is a two-sided pencil. It also has a pocket in case you want to put some small items in there. Here's the UPC or barcode for this pencil case, and it's made by Global Art. The outside material on this is canvas with some leather detailing. I'll just add a couple pencils to this so you can see how they slide in. I do really love all the colors and how they look in the case. This was the original case and now you can see where it didn't glue down. I could probably fix it with some glue, but I don't really care because I'm going to use this other case anyway. This is how I do my swatch sheet. I put it on cardstock or whatever I use the most, and I use a T-square to draw the lines. I also put them in sheet protectors and then add them to this binder so I can keep them all together. I can easily remove any of these pages and use them as I color and then return them when I'm done. I typically use a Copic multiliner or a Sharpie to make note of the colors, maybe the numbers, and also the types of pencils. Here's a look at the back of the box. To sharpen my pencils, I use this Kum K-U-M sharpener, and this is made in Germany. This does a great job, and you can get replacement blades for them. You can order them on Amazon or get them at Jerry's or Dick Blick. This one you have to empty over a garbage can, but they have some that catch all the shavings and then you can empty it later. I was curious as to how all the whites would perform, so I decided to try this on black paper and do a side-by-side comparison. I found the Prismacolor to be the brightest, followed by the Faber-Castell, then the Chameleon, and finally the Jane Davenport. You'll see this more clearly in a second when I draw them side by side. By the way, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions or recommendations, please leave them in the comments. You can see some of the crumbling here from the Chameleon. All this information is summed up, and there's a little bit more information on the accompanying post. Just click the link below this video. This portion of the video is going to be a speed coloring of this image, which was stamped in Memento Tuxedo Black ink. The image is from Dreamerland Crafts. Let the journey begin. It doesn't show very well in the video, but when I'm coloring, I'm doing this in small circles with a sharp pencil. This way it gets into the tooth of the paper. Also, you'll see me flip the pencil around to do the darker blending periodically. It may not show very well because it's sped up so much, but you should be able to see it a little bit if you're looking for it. It's a little hard to see in the video, but these are the little specks that I was talking about that can get under the pencil and make dark spots. In a few cases I had to use my eraser to get rid of them. I kept a brush on the side and used it now and then, but sometimes I forgot. At this point, I just did a little bit more blending and then I called it done. As far as the pencils go, the only things that really bothered me were that they weren't very pigmented. I couldn't get a very dark black or bright red, and they did crumble a little bit, but they blended well on their own without any solvent, and there are 2 colors on each pencil, so they're actually pretty good for travel. Here's a final look at the card all put together, and for a step-by-step, please see my blog post. The link will be below the video. Thank you so much for watching.